Not again. I can't believe you're out here pooing in the yard. We have indoor plumbing. Hey, what in the world are you doing? You don't have to bathe outside with wet wipes anymore. We have 2 perfectly good showers inside. We have water in the fridge. You don't need a filter anymore. Great. Well, Archie might be the size of a bear. You don't have to worry about stealing your food.
I don't know who this Greg guy is she keeps referring to. I'm Captain America. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm still having a hard time adjusting back to reality and normal life, whatever that is. But it's been exactly a month since I summited Katahdin, which is insane to think about. But thought I'd put a short video together that talks about all the data and numbers associated with my thru hike, and then a couple thoughts on just the hike overall and plans moving forward. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I'm gonna just jump right into it here. So I started my hike 21 February, ended it on 17 July. So it took a grand total of 147 days for the thru hike. The first number I want to talk about, because it's the most important number, is what was raised for the charity. So I spoke to Peter yesterday. He's the president of Fallen Not Forgotten. He is on vacation right now, so he wasn't able to pull exact numbers, but he confirmed that with the remaining pending donations that are out there, my buddy Rick and his company is matching his donations, and he pledged $1 for every mile that I hike. So that's a very significant amount of money and donations being made to the charity just from him. So I wanted to kind of wait for that one just to get the final number. But Peter told me that raised almost $20,000 throughout the course of my hike. I asked him if he knew how many people donated. And again, he didn't have the data in front of him, and he didn't even want to guess because he said that there were so many. So that really hits home for me. I'm very proud of that, and I'm very thankful for all of you. Just knowing that there were so many people that donated to help out the hike and help out these families for the charity. This is probably the one thing I'm most proud of for this thru hike. Okay, so getting into the days and mileage and stuff like that, I took a total of 14 zeros. It was a lot higher than I was thinking it was going to be, but I had a couple double zeros. So the first zero was in Hiawassee. That was after the first week with Oopsie Daisy. We got in early and he wanted to zero, and it rained all day, so I think that was a good zero to take. Day 14 was at Fontana. I had a chafing issue and I needed to get that taken care of, and I did not want to start the Smokies and that 70-mile stretch knowing I had some chafing going on. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's a very uncomfortable condition to have. Day 22 and 23 I spent in Hot Springs. This was after I came out of the Smokies, and then I started developing shin problems that would not go away. So I decided to do a double zero in Hot Springs and stay off my feet. If you remember back then, I wasn't sure if it was just overuse or if it was a shoe problem. I ended up sticking with the same shoes throughout my hike, and I think it was just a overuse problem. But in any case, I took 2 zeros in Hot Springs, which I think was a good call. The next zero was in Irwin, so just a couple days later. That was day 29. I decided to zero there because Rapture was back on trail. He got off at Hot Springs for shin problems. That gave him a chance to catch up, and we could hike around each other again. Day 39 and day 40, we got into Damascus a little early, and my wife was flying in to hike Grayson Highlands with me. So did a double zero there, waiting for her to get in. And then our next zero was day 56. That was in Daleville. That was a good one because one of the worst nights on the trail was at McAfee Knob. We ended up pitching our tents right below. I think it was about a 3/4 of a mile trip down from McAfee Knob, and we had wind gusts. I don't even know what it was. I mean, we can only guess, but I would say they were upwards of 50 miles an hour. Had to relocate tents multiple times and hold the tent poles up for the support for the tent. So I'm saying all this because we got zero sleep that night, and I think it was a pretty decent hike into Daleville the next day. I think it was around 17 miles, so decided to rest and take a zero in Daleville. The next zero wasn't until we decided to go to New York City and see the city. And so that was over a month we hiked without taking a zero. And really, I would argue New York City wasn't much of a zero because we walked the entire city the entire day. So it wasn't much of a rest day, but went over a month. That was day 91. And then next zeros, it was another double zero. This was day 108 and 109. Got off at Bennington, Vermont, and this is where we flew back to Georgia, picked up Rapture's car and my van, and got back up to Vermont. That's pretty crazy that it only took 2 days and we're back on trail hiking miles by day 110. The next zero was day 122, which was at Franconia Notch. Decided to do this simply because of weather. Franconia was one area I definitely wanted good weather and was willing to wait however long it took because it still remains one of the best sections of the trail. So I'm glad we did that. Only had to wait a day and then we had great weather. The next zero was on day 130, and that was in Gorham, New Hampshire. We both just needed a break, so decided to rest on day 130. And then the next one wasn't until got to Monson in Maine, and I went to pick up my brother from the airport prior to us starting the 100-mile wilderness. So the average miles, including all of the zeros, so 147 days total, the average was 14.91 miles per day. And then if we take out the zeros, if you're curious what the mileage was where I was actually hiking, miles on the trail, that would have been 133 days total, and my average was 16.48 miles per day. The highest mile day that I had was in Pennsylvania, and that was 31 plus miles. That was the only 30 I did during the thru hike. Had plenty of mid-20s and even higher 20s. Had a couple of marathons, as you would call them, over 26 miles. And then the lowest mile day was, we had multiple Neros. I think some people wouldn't call this a Nero because it was only a couple miles. But I counted any day where I was hiking miles on the trail as a Nero. So had a couple of those where there was only a couple miles into town, and we plan that intentionally sometimes for weather or for whatever other reasons. Okay, so lodging and how I slept throughout the trail. So a total of 75 days I was in a tent. A total of 6 days I spent sleeping in a shelter. Then I combined cabin, motel, and hotel because they're kind of all the same thing. I used those a total of 17 nights. I stayed in a hostel 13 nights. I stayed in my van 27 nights. And then I stayed with trail angels. So we had Rapture's brother, we had Sheepdog, and we had Nicole and Dan. All put us up during our thru hike, and that was a total of 6 nights. And then I stayed in an Airbnb 3 nights. So one of those nights was when I met up with my cousin, and he put me up. And then the other 2 nights were in Irwin, because I didn't stay at the hostel there. I stayed at a Airbnb. As far as weather, I would say that got extremely lucky on my thru hike with weather. I can't really complain. Don't get me wrong, there were days that were very challenging, and I really didn't know how to break this up, but I kind of put it in 4 categories, being days that were favorable to hike, days that were less than desirable, days that were just flat out poor, and that could mean it was either too hot, too cold, or just too rainy, and then just days of precipitation. So the days that I would classify as being very favorable for hiking, I had 101 days where it was nice to be out there hiking. I only had 27 where I thought, okay, this isn't ideal, but it's manageable. And then only had 20 where I thought, okay, this sucks because it's either too hot, too cold, or too rainy. Only counted 13 days of precipitation. Now that's where I'm out there hiking. Like I said, there was a lot of luck and a lot of planning that went into getting off a trail, taking a 0, or nearing into town when we knew that the weather was going to be poor. So that we kind of adjusted our mileage on that, which I thought was a smart move. As far as finances, so I was tracking this, but the data's kind of skewed once I picked up the van, because that kind of threw everything off. So I would just say, I would estimate I spent roughly $2,100 to $2,500 a month for this hike up until getting the van. I will say I was not on a budget per se. I wasn't too worried about when I was in town having to pinch pennies. If I was in town and I wanted to eat, awesome, I did so. If I wanted to get beers, I did so. So I wasn't really sparing a whole lot of expenses. I wanted to enjoy my thru hike. That figure is not getting out to Georgia, because that's going to vary per person. And then it's also not going to cover some of the gear that I had to replace or switch out and things like that, because that's going to vary for each person as well. I don't know that I saved a whole lot of money incorporating the van on the last few hundred miles of the hike. I was spending quite a bit of money on diesel, and as you guys know, gas prices haven't been exactly cheap lately. So that said, a lot of the hotels and motels up north, they're pretty pricey, so I'm not sure. I wouldn't know if I saved any money by incorporating the van or not. I will say I did not stay in a hotel at all once I incorporated the van into the hike. As far as food, my favorite go-to was Mountain House Chili Mac, and then would often get a bag of Fritos, crush that up and throw them in there. It's an awesome meal, especially when it's cold out. Really good. Favorite meal that wasn't freeze-dried food would be my go-to, which is tuna and ramen. Free if you're out there. He called it fish soup. I would put 2 things of ramen, get more seasoning. I never really got sick of it. I even still have it here sometimes. As far as injuries, okay, we talked a little bit about the shins. That was my big one early on, and I think I experienced shin problems for a good 3 weeks until they finally just went away. I tried all sorts of things: KT tape, certain ointments, stretches. Again, I think it was just a mixture of overuse and not enough rest. But I was lucky and it went away. So I did not know about chafing. I didn't think this was something that I had to be concerned about. I thought this was something that only happened with larger people, but I can tell you I had to deal with it quite a bit on this hike. And then in addition to that, something called heat rash. I cannot express how uncomfortable it is out there carrying a pack in hot weather, hiking these miles, and having to deal with these types of conditions. And really the only thing that solved it for me, I mean, there's certain products out there that help, but getting off the trail and resting is really the only thing that helped me. So that was kind of a short-term thing. That was probably one of the most annoying things about the whole hike, was those two things. Foot problems, I had, various foot problems throughout the hike, but they would go away. And then I think you guys all saw various bites, stings. I had ticks, and some swelling from that, but luckily all of that went away. Sorry, just going through my list here. So I have seen my PCM since being back. I've seen a podiatrist. So I'm over a month now and I am still dealing with foot pain. I'll get up in the morning. The only thing that solves it is putting shoes on. So I don't know if it's something I need to be more concerned about or not, but the podiatrist confirmed. He said you have Morton's neuroma and some of your padding and whatnot. And then I have hammer toe as well. So he wants to do surgery. I haven't really made up my mind whether I'm going to have surgery, but it's about a 4-week recovery if I do it. And then the hernia I got, I would say probably the last 1,000 miles or so that I've been dealing with, that requires surgery as well. I have an appointment Monday to schedule that. The only other thing long-term from the hike that I have experienced since I've been back is exhaustion. I don't know what it is. I am just tired all the time. I've cut out sugar. Prior to my hike, I really didn't eat sugar, but I ate a lot of it on the trail just for calories and energy, and now I'm not eating it. I don't know if that might be part of it. I'm sure it has something to do with it. I've been exercising since I've been back. I joined the YMCA and I'm swimming a mile. I try to do it every day. So I'm still getting exercise, things like that, but I just feel tired all the time, and I'm hoping that'll work itself out. But that's it for injuries. As far as packages, I had about 5 packages sent to me. So that was in Hot Springs, Irwin, Daleville, Great Barrington, and Gorham. I went through 6 pairs of shoes. Had I not had problems with one of the pairs, I probably could have done it in 5. But I stuck with the Olympus 4s from Ultra. I like them. I don't know. I don't really have anything to compare it to. A lot of people went with the Hokas for their thru hikes. I didn't want to switch up halfway and have a problem, so I stuck with them. And I'm still wearing the same shoes today, so. Okay, pack weight. I know I was a little bit above 30 pounds when I started. I weighed the pack when I was at various hostels and I was right around that. Now once it started warming up, I got rid of my colder quilt, things like that, cold weather gear. But I incorporated other things, so I think I stayed right around 30 pounds the entire way. And I know I was carrying a lot more food towards the end of the hike, which would make up for some of the weight that I saved, so because I was just eating so much. But yeah, I would guess around 30 pounds for the entire way. My favorite piece of gear was the Jetboil Flash. I know it's more weight than things like the Pocket Rocket and some of the other gear out there. I don't care. I love that thing. It boils water extremely fast. I like how it packs down, easy to use. I'm even thinking about getting their Jetboil base camp system, which is pretty pricey, but it's kind of like this 2-burner stove that packs down really light for the van. So we're looking into that. My least favorite piece of gear, and it was also kind of my favorite piece of gear, is the aqua clips that you saw in my water bottles. I would put them on my hip. I don't like water bottles up here in my face and all up in my grill, so that's how I carry them. But I probably went through about 10 of these things, and they're only a couple bucks, so it's not a huge deal. But I think I may have mentioned it in one of the other gear videos. If someone could make those in titanium so they don't break, I think that would be an awesome piece of gear. Body weight when I started, I was at right around 173. The lowest that I know of that a scale told me was 149. I don't know if that scale was accurate or not, but I think every time I weighed myself, whether it be at a hostel or a hotel or something like that, I was right around 155 to 157. So I would say that was my trail weight, right around 155. Future plans. So I have a big announcement to make. Not quite ready to make it yet. Still got a few things to work out before doing so. But the wife and I and the dogs are heading to Yellowstone tomorrow. So we've only actually been out in the van once since I've been back, and it was extremely smoky. There were helicopters flying overhead, putting out fires and whatnot. So I haven't been able to get out a whole lot due to weather and poor conditions with all the fires, but we are heading to Yellowstone tomorrow for over a week. So we're just gonna go explore around with the dogs. I don't know that we'll do any backpacking. I have not done a whole lot of hiking. In fact, I've only done one hike since I've been back. That is mainly because I want to give my feet a long time to recover from the thru hike, and hopefully that pain goes away. What I've done though in the month I've been back, lots of house projects. We're downsizing a lot. We have gotten rid of a lot of things. If it's one thing that this hike taught me, it's that I don't need as much as I thought I needed. Don't get me wrong, I still like nice things, but I really don't need all the stuff that I have. We went to a concert 2 days after I was back. That was fun. I went and saw Dierks Bentley, so it was cool being out, knowing that these things are back available to the public. When I started the thru hike, you couldn't even go out to a restaurant here in Washington, so hopefully it stays that way. That concert was a little bit much for me. Just being around big crowds and stuff like that, it's kind of a lot to take in after living in the woods for 5 months. So. Like I said, I joined the YMCA. I'm trying to keep the pounds off and stay fit.
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the YMCA is a place where people can play sports, take classes, or stay cheaply. It is run by the YMCA.
Alexa, off. Sorry about that. Okay, so one thing that I never really understood, and I think I understand now, thru hikers and just people that are attached to the AT, I couldn't really ever understand why someone would want to thru hike it multiple times. And there's plenty of people out there that do that. And I'm not talking once or twice, I'm talking 6, 7, 8 times. And I just never really wrapped my head around why someone would want to do that. And I don't think I have any intention or desire to do that, but I understand why people are connected to it. And just since being back, and talking to certain people, whatnot, I think it's a lot like the military, where you have that common bond, and people understand what you went through doing something like a thru hike of the AT. And don't get me wrong, I have friends, family, they're all impressed, they acknowledge it and stuff like that, but it's just one of those things where I don't think many people really grasp what you go through to accomplish, hiking from Georgia to Maine, 2,200 miles. So I think that there's that sense of belonging and just sense of being connected to one another and peers that have gone through the same thing, that fully understand what went into it. Okay, so one of the things I think that I mentioned when I started, I mentioned the book Appalachian Trials, and he talks a lot about the mental preparedness and whatnot for completing a thru hike, and I will agree it's 100% more mental than physical. But he recommended writing down certain things and carrying them in your pack, and when the going gets tough, you can pull that out and remind yourself why you decided to do the hike. So I did that. I'm happy to say that I did not need to pull this out the entire time. So there were certainly days that were tough, and I thought, this sucks, and man, I really don't want to be out here right this minute. There's a million other places I'd rather be. But I don't remember ever feeling like I'm going to quit or having desire to quit. So that was one of the things that really made me nervous going out there, not having a whole lot of backpacking experience. Was I could have gotten out there and, you know, after a week thought that this is not for me, and I'm now going to have to explain to everyone that I quit, and that scared the crap out of me. But luckily I enjoyed every minute of it. Not every minute of it, but I enjoyed being out there, and I never really had the desire to quit at all. But I'm going to pull this out right now, and I'll just share with you all what I wrote down before I started. Okay, so first page is I am thru hiking the Appalachian Trail because first thing I wrote down was because I want and need the challenge. I definitely remember feeling that way. Towards the end of my military career, I was not feeling challenged. I was feeling very frustrated at times, and I wanted to do something hard. I talk about resiliency and what that means to me and everything in my first video. But second was I wanted to test my mental and physical limitations. Definitely did that. I want to be more social and get out of my comfort zone. Not a very social guy. That has been a pretty hard adjustment being back. I probably should have talked about that. It was definitely nice getting out on the trail and having a tramily. There are people that I will be in contact with the rest of my life. And just thinking about them right now, I'm feeling emotional because I miss them a lot. I want to be more connected to nature. I definitely was. And I want to raise money for 16 of OSI's heroes who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I would definitely say mission accomplished on that aspect. Okay, the next page is when I successfully thru hike the Appalachian Trail, I will. First thing I wrote down is have a better understanding of what comes next for me. I think I have a good understanding. There were no epiphanies, I'll put it that way, on the trail where I thought, oh, this is what what the next chapter is going to be for me. In fact, still working it out, but I will say the wife and I have figured some things out, and we are moving in the right direction, and that's going to be part of this announcement I make in the next video. Be more confident in everything I do. Definitely think that was met, because that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and it does make you feel like the sky's the limit. You really don't need anything holding you back or people telling you you can't do something, because anything's possible. Appreciate things and not take things for granted. Definitely. Things like showers, food, comfortable bedding, all of those things. Definitely don't take those things for granted anymore. Be a better man and husband. You'll have to ask the wife on that one. The jury's probably out. I've probably been a little bit irritable since I've been back, so more to come on that one. Be less materialistic. Like I said, I do still like nice things. I like my nice van. I like things that work. But we're downsizing. We've been downsizing since I've been back, selling a bunch of stuff that we don't need. So I think I'm getting better with that. And then having raised money for a charity supporting fallen OSI, which mission accomplished. Okay, and then this last page I think is kind of more for on the trail, but the last page says, if I give up on the Appalachian Trail, I will. First thing I wrote down is never forgive myself. Have let my wife, friends, colleagues down. Will be ashamed and embarrassed, and realize that I am not as strong as I think, mentally and physically. So, there you have it. Glad I didn't have to pull this out, but it's going in my trail journal, so I won't forget it. Okay, the only other thing I'll say is one of the things that surprised me and impressed me was just the community with the support throughout the trail, both with hikers and trail angels and everything like that. You've heard me talk about that since the beginning. And I was surprised to just learn about how many veterans and government employees and civil servants and whatnot are actually out there on the trail. That really blew my mind. One of the things that disappointed me was, and maybe if I could do it again, I would try and find other individuals or more people in OSI at headquarters to get more support for sharing the stories of these 16 fallen. I don't know. I don't mean that because I needed the attention or anything like that. That's the farthest thing that I wanted, but it kind of surprised me that our public affairs or some entity at headquarters didn't take more interest in this and help share and get the word out and help me share their stories. It was kind of crickets, which it's frustrating, but luckily I got to meet people along the way, and I connected with various OSI people like Chief Tangway and others who connected me with families and whatnot. So I was really happy for that. But if I could do it again, I would press even more and hope that someone at headquarters would take interest in the hike and help out the charity and things like that. So that's going to do it for this video. I do remember some comments asking me to do a post-hike gear video, which I plan to do. I think what I'll do is bring the major gear items with me to Yellowstone, and I will do that video from Yellowstone, and then I will share the big announcement. More to come. Thank you all. So I thought I finished this video. I was going to edit it tonight, but I was just driving and thinking about a conversation I had with Grumpy Cat at some point on the trail. We were talking about what it takes to do a thru hike. And we both agreed that it takes three things: time, money, and good health. And that's pretty hard to have all of those three things at one point in your life, but I would actually argue that you need two more things in addition to that. Those being, you need a little bit of luck. Because even if you have all the time in the world, the biggest budget, and you're in good health, any number of things can go wrong out there. And sometimes it's just bad luck. You take a wrong step, twist an ankle or break an ankle, and it takes you off the trail. And we saw that out there with a lot of people that just got dealt a crappy hand, and I think a little bit of luck is involved in being a successful thru hiker. And then the last thing that I think you need, probably the most important thing, even if all the stars are aligned and you have all of that, if you don't have the desire to do the thru hike deep down, then you're probably not going to be successful. Even if you are successful, without that desire, you're probably going to be miserable the entire time you're out there. So I would say it takes those 5 things to be a successful thru hiker: time, money, good health, a little bit of luck, and then a deep desire to to walk 2,200 miles.